The season might be over for the Toronto Raptors, but the rumor mill just started churning. Welcome to Hoop Talks. Welcome back, you guys. Noor Zainab, Jelani Goodridge-Reid, Justin Pooni. Why do we all look so happy and relaxed today?
No Toronto Raptors basketball.
Can I finish it? He couldn't even wait to get it out. God forbid I finish my intro.
Damn, bro.
Were you like holding on to it all weekend? Are you out of breath right now?
Yeah, he's
No,
not
I'm
happy.
totally
He
fine.
was happy. He was completely happy. But
I missed the Raptors.
I don't care. I don't care what's happening in the world of NBA right now. We'll talk about the playoffs. We'll talk about what's happening. But the Raptors are gonna have one of the most chaotic off seasons, in my opinion, that's just about to come over. And it just started actually on Friday when Fred VanVleet was asked about the team itself. And Fred was asked, what do you think the young people, the young squad the young players on the squad have to do to come out and be better? And instead of having an internal discussion, he said this out loud, and he said, well, I think a lot of our guys are a little bit immature. Got to spend a little bit more time in the lock and then the weights and blah, 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 all those things. But it got me to think, and I think it started a discussion across the platform too, because some people were on board with what he had to say because they were like, this is right. It's true. They do have to work on their stuff. But other people were saying, well, is this what a leader should be saying from the locker room? Okay, I see you're nodding like head's about to fall off, but I'll get there really quickly. So I wanted to ask you guys and have like a full open discussion about this entire season. I think for me, the leadership has been a big question mark. So as it stands currently, who is the leader of the Toronto Raptors? Justin.
Number 23, Fred VanVleet. Simple as that. He's the leader of this team. And who else? When you look at this roster, right? Who has the personality? Who has the pull to be the leader of this team? It's Fred VanVleet, right? You look at Pascal Siakam. We know he's the best player on the team, but does his personality warrant leadership, right? I don't think so. We haven't seen that at all from him, right? And everybody's saying, oh, Fred VanVleet is throwing parting shots as he's leaving the organization. The way I see it is he's holding his teammates accountable. I saw DeMar DeRozan after the game on Friday against the Miami Heat. He said post-game, they're like, oh, who's going to be involved in your workouts? And he said, everybody 23 and under is mandatory to be at my workouts in the offseason. That's the same type of energy, right? DeMar DeRozan is a leader. Fred VanVleet has learned from guys like Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, and to some extent, Kawhi Leonard. I don't know, Kawhi wasn't really the leader of that 2019. It was around, Kyle Lowry. And I think that relationship that Kyle and Fred had about being a leader, I'm sure he learned a lot from Kyle on leading this organization and carrying on that culture. And I think with Fred, I like what he's saying. He's making everybody accountable, putting them on blast in public, because he's the guy that's had to work for everything he's got in the NBA. He was undrafted. He went through the G League. He came off the bench. He became the sixth man. He became a starter, became an all-star, and he's going to get paid over $100 million in this offseason from the Raptors, or some team out there will pay him that money. And I think for him, when he sees guys that have more talent than him, right, that have had more opportunity than him to start their career, and they're not taking advantage of it, of course it's going to make you feel some type of way. Because if everybody had the same work ethic and desire as Fred VanVleet, people can say all you want about, do you think he shoots too much and all of this and that, but he's put the work in to earn those shots, right? Kobe Bryant did the same thing. He never wanted to pass Shaq the ball because Kobe knew how much work he put into it, rather than Shaq, who would have his off seasons off. Now, again, totally different dynamic. Nobody's comparing Fred VanVleet to Kobe Bryant. I'm just saying the situation is this. Fred's put the work in his whole career. He's grinded his whole way up to become this elite level basketball player. And when he sees his team and his franchise, these younger players kind of coasting off and not taking it as seriously as he would, why wouldn't you call them out?
I love the take. Very good take.
Thank you.
But let's look at the Siakam factor, right? Because I think after the championship year, we lost Kawhi, and we still had Kyle, of course, who was the leader for sure. But then once Kyle left, I think it was Pascal's team, and obviously, yes, he's the best player, considered to be the best player on the team. So by default, you look at him and to be that leader, right? But at times I see that, yes, he's kind of vocal, not as much as Fred, but he'll say a few things to try to get these guys to play up to the level that they're expected to play at. But I think through Pascal, there's been a struggle. I think, as the leader of the quote unquote leader of the Raptors in this whole Pascal Fred type era, if
The
you could even
Pascal
call
Fred
it,
era, yeah.
yeah, if you could even call it an era. I think it's been tough times because right now, you might argue that there's no leader at times, right? Yes, Fred is there, but again, after that game, you're seeing, yes, he did call them out, which I do like. I do like my star players to hold guys accountable, but at the same time, you got to look at yourself in the mirror too. And I don't know how much these guys do it, right? So the whole thing with Pascal, like I wanted to bring up, was just I don't know how much of a leader he really is. Is he the type of leader that shows you through his game, right? More than being a vocal leader? Probably, possibly, because he's gone through things as well. Pascal has, and he's gone through it. He's played through it, so that could be an example. That he's shown to his teammates that despite off-court problems, remember he was dealing with things in the bubble, all that stuff, right? You can still play through it. So you could argue it's Pascal. With the Fred point, I see the point there because he is bet on yourself. He is the vocal leader of this group, and yeah, guys around the league respect Fred VanVleet, right? Yeah. But I just think this time with these two guys as the cornerstones of the Raptors, I just don't know if it really works, because this is a different look, a different feel than what we used to have. DeMar and Kyle, right? Those guys were true. Those were true. You looked at Kawhi,
Vocal.
so yeah, it's different times.
I want to ask you, Noor. You saw the media end of the season media availability, and somebody asked Pascal about what Fred's comments were, and he had that little chuckle on his face, right? Do you think there's a little bit of beef between the two of them?
No, they're besties. I don't think.
No,
so.
I think Siakam and Pirtle are besties. I don't think Fred.
No, Freddie and Siakam have been for the longest. They started their whole journey together. But the Raptors 905 now coming on to the Raptors itself, winning a champ. Like no, they're close. They're like beloved. They call each other. But I think you raised a really good point. I've been saying this, I feel like, the entire year, where I just don't think this locker room has a real leader. A lot of the people that we mentioned just now, and you guys made great points, and I think based off of Siakam's trajectory, because of where he's gone through, what he's gone through, it's a very inspiring story for people around him to be like, well, if he can do it, I can do that too. Same as Freddie, where it's like he had to bet on himself to be where he is right now. So the frustration of having to build yourself up to where you are, and then having to watch someone who got drafted out of nothing kind of just like take everything on the back burner, I'm sure is frustrating. But my problem is I don't think any of them is set out to be a leader. I don't think it's Freddie. I don't think it's Nick Nurse. I don't think it's Pascal Siakam. It cannot be Scotty Barnes because he's way too young for this. But those guys that you look at, I don't think they have what it takes, because as you said, yes, they've gone through a lot, but when you're supposed to be a leader, you have to put aside your own experiences. You use them to work around the people that you're with, but you don't use them to justify your own actions. So what he did, and when he went to talk to the media, that was everything he said was great. And it was true. Like, you need to be able to ask a lot from your young guys, and they should be putting in the work and effort throughout not just the regular season, but also in the off season. But I don't think that was the right place to make those comments. We had the same problem with Nick Nurse too. These guys are talking in ways that they should not be talking. All these things should be maintained in the locker room amongst your personnel. Anytime you open your mouth and you let someone into your dirty laundry, now, like, think about it this way, right? Let's say we're sitting here. I say, shit, I wish Jelani went a little bit harder today. Now, I'm not going to tell him that. I'm going to go and say this on social media. I'm going to be like, damn, I wish Jelani went harder today.
But how do we know that wasn't said in the locker room, though?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's the thing. It doesn't matter. It should never escape the locker room. I don't care how many times you stay in the locker room. It should never escape, because the second your locker room now thinks that you're talking about them in the public eye, you've lost their trust.
And it seemed like Pascal in that one comment, he didn't know that Fred said what he said about the team, right? So he was kind of taken aback. That's why he chuckled.
There's nothing wrong with it. He's absolutely 1,000% correct. It's just you don't say it to other people. When you have a problem with somebody, now him saying that is going to cause friction between him and Scotty Barnes, him and all the young guys, because they'll be like, do you even like us? Do you even think we put up a fight? Do you even think we do anything?
But did they put up a fight a lot of the time?
It doesn't matter. Anything he wants to say to them, he can be as aggressive as he wants to. He can they can fight. They can fucking beef it out. But that has to be in the locker room. No one can know about it, because I think the second that trickles out, you are now pitting your teammates against each other, and that's what happens. They don't like each other. They play like they're not friends. They play like they don't like each other, and that's
it's just been overall. It's just been a down year.
And I think that's why I think the writing's on the wall. We know there's gonna be big changes here in Toronto. I think a lot of these pieces and players that Fred could be alluding to might not be back next year.
It's true.
Right?
He might himself not be back.
He might not
next
even
year,
himself
you
be
never
back
know.
next year. But I think, like I said before, I think Fred sticks around. I think Fred is that guy that.
No, I think he's great, but I really do think, and he's great for a quote to end media, but in terms of kind of just holding back your ego, that goes to both him and Nick Nurse. I want to see more of that. Like they say the exact right things, they have the right approach, but those
like
things,
the time they say it. Or
yeah,
right
it
after.
just should not be said to the media. These things should never. Just think about it. Like I'm telling you, like we're sitting together, we're a group. We're having conversations. Next second, I go out, talk to the press, and be like, "Yeah, guys, my team members, they're great, but they're immature." How would you feel?
Well, maybe
about
they
that?
spoke after. I don't know if they spoke. We don't know.
We don't know, really.
I know, but regardless, it drifts apart the trust that
Yeah,
you have with your team, and
I
I
see what
think
you're saying.
that's the issue.
I see what you're
That's,
saying.
in my opinion, is the problem, and that's also why I think the next whatever the Raptors do, they have to look for a real voice in the locker room. We need to have someone like as we did with Kawhi, as we did with DeRozan sometimes too, because DeRozan had to take the back seat to Kyle because he was so loud and proper in the way that he went about things, and I think that's what we're missing. Hopefully.
I think Fred was supposed to, like he after Kyle, right?
He
He
got
was second
the-
in line. So
got
I
the
think that's what
keys.
Justin was trying to
And
point
I
out
think
before. But
exactly, yeah, he was the next in line because he was the closest to Kyle, and I think they played the same position. He kind of took over that leadership. And again, there's a whole lot of things that are going on with this team, this organization. We still haven't heard from really Masai yet or Bobby.
Right.
Hopefully this week we do hear from them. But I think the biggest thing is they just need to isolate the people they want a part of this culture that they want to reintegrate and rebuild, and be all in on those guys and fill the pieces around them that can buy into that same common goal and culture. And once they do that, I think things will start turning in an upward trend.
Yeah, well, like Justin said, there'll be a bunch of people returning and a bunch of people probably not returning next season, including your staff, your coach, and your players. It's going to be a pretty hefty, long season for the Raptors. We'll be here for the ride. Anything you see on Twitter, tag us, let us know. We want to get all the juice. We'll talk about everything that can allude to what this team could look like next season. And that's why we're here on Hoop Talks.